Welcome to the Intercut podcast, the weekly show going over the TV, movies, and entertainment that people can't cut away from. I am your co-host, Zachary Shevich, and joining me, he sounds like a dying horse. It's Arturo Zurita.
What's up, Zach? I'm excited to be here. Y'all talking about the haircuts. You just hop the beanie on, dude. That's all you need. You put the beanie on, you can go a couple more months in this quarantine just like that. Or you could do what Fernando does and get that Sundance cap on you just like that. What's up, Fernando?
Oh boy. Excited to be here too. Yeah, I have to wear a hat. I look like there's a dead dog on my head, I swear.
We finished recording one of the last podcasts. He took that thing off. I went, who is that?
But we're staying strong. We're surviving, watching movies.
Doing what we can, accessorizing how we can. I like to use my headphone as like a bit of a headband to keep some of the situation under control. But thanks for not commenting mean things about our in-progress facial hairs and what have you. We really appreciate that. In a little bit, we're going to talk about Dead to Me, Capone, and your questions. But first, make sure you're subscribed to the Intercut podcast, either the video podcast on youtube.com/intercutpod or the audio podcast available on most podcatchers, including Spotify, Apple Podcasts, whatever you use. Also, follow Intercut on social media, whether it's Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram. We are at IntercutPod. That's at IntercutPod. That's short for podcast. Art, let's start the show the way we start it every week here with what we are watching. What you been watching?
I got a couple of things. I'm gonna stick to three quick ones. One of them would be the biggest box office movie of this past weekend, The Wretched, coming to you from like the three theaters that are opened. It was reported as the #1 box office movie. I don't know if you heard about this.
Films just absolutely killing it.
When you go to the box office, and I got the screenshot, I have been documenting this entire event because someone's got to, right? I've been going on the AMC app, the Regal app. I've been going on Fandango, Flickster. I want to see, I want footage of everything that's going on right now, and one of them is a screenshot of IFC getting the 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 spots at the box office because they're the only ones out there, and their #1 is The Wretched. It's an 80s throwback type movie about a witch. A lot of people call it like a Spielbergish Vivitch. Kind of there. There was a movie that played at Sundance a couple years back called 1985, I want to say, or Summer of 85.
Yeah.
I think it's like a better version of that movie with this kid who is juxtaposed with this witch who is who knows how many years old, and how she's trying to take over a lot of the families there in the community. My man's just trying to get his family back together because his parents are going through a divorce. So it's like a nice little story. The practical effects are really cool. But I'd say it's a pretty decent stream it. That's the #1 movie in America right now. I don't know if you guys caught that one, but that is out there. Yet. One of the other ones that I caught, the Skyline back here, I thought, why not? I need a little motivation. And I decided to binge half of The Last Dance. This thing is an ESPN and Netflix original, so I don't know when it's going to be on Netflix. I don't know if you gentlemen have caught this at all?
Not yet.
The best documentary series of the damn year. Now, mind you, viewers, a couple of years ago, what won the Oscar for best documentary? That was a 10-hour series at Sundance? OJ Made in America.
OJ Made in America, yeah.
As soon as that won, they changed the rules. So this one isn't eligible. I wish it was because it's definitely deserving of it. It covers Michael Jordan, really, but it's supposed to be the final dance of the Chicago Bulls. That being said, putting it into perspective, as a 90s kid, especially in Chicago, the Bulls won 6 times. This is covering that last one, the 6th one. And I never knew that the coach always had a name, a title for every season. And he's the one who titled their final season because of upper management that was doing stuff. Even though they had 5 champions, he named it The Last Dance. So who would have thought that he named it almost 2 decades ago? Over 2 decades ago. He named a very successful documentary series. So I've been watching that. Really, really like that one. Last one is Upload.
So I was just going to say about The Last Dance has been a bit of a phenomenon in the vacancy left without having sports around. I've been DVRing them, so I'm definitely going to try and catch up on that one soon. But you also have been watching the Amazon show Upload.
Yep. And great point
that you made. I believe this one is created by Greg Daniels.
It is, and it's got the boys from Code 8. But real quick, going off of what you had said, they pushed it up. Last Dance was supposed to come out in the summer And they pushed it up because of the quarantine. So, yeah, that's a great point. Upload is really cool. It's a series on Amazon starring Robbie Amell. And pretty much it's way into the future. Bro, when you see the skyline in New York, it'll make you vomit. It'll make you vomit because you know it's the skyline that they're going to try to make, which is just bigger and bigger residential buildings over Centennial. But the story is about what happens if someone creates technology where you don't die and go to heaven. You die and get uploaded. And depending on how rich you are, maybe you can afford that. Maybe you got to stick to the regular faith death. Or if you're super rich and have a girlfriend, you end up like Robbie Amell in like the estates that is on a digital computer where your mind is uploaded in the afterlife before you die. So I think it's a really interesting series. I'm only halfway through with it. A lot of people have mixed things about it.
Are you just sort of fascinated with the world, or are you laughing too?
That's my least favorite part about it. They have a lot of cute moments, which are okay, but I was like, I don't really care about that stuff. I think they have a lot of interesting ideas that I feel maybe a lot of people aren't taking seriously because they undermine it maybe with the story or some of the jokes that they try to do. But there is actual discussions being had about, okay, this technology exists. Why don't you get it, Dad? I can get you, you're sick. No, I want to be with Mom and do it the right way. I'm just very curious to see where else they're going to take it. I don't know if they have upcoming seasons and stuff like that, but I really like the philosophical discussions that they have here and there about it. A lot of funny like Easter eggs that they do of because this takes place 20 years from now. So it's like a lot of things that they're predicting in between. It's a lot like Silicon Valley. You know how like the beginning, it'll change every single time. And it's like making jokes to tech companies. This is kind of like that. But instead of tech companies, it's the government. It's just everything else. But I found that one, it's kind of fun. So I would recommend that one.
Cool.
What about you guys?
Cool. Fernando?
Yeah, so what have I been watching? One movie that I caught that this was really cool. So Mubi is like a really small streaming platform that shows like a lot of classic movies, indie movies, and they did an event I think a couple last week where they showed Emma, 1M, not 2M's, not the recent one, but this one played at TIFF a couple years ago and Sundance this past year. It's
directed by Pablo Larraín, previously who made Fantastic Woman, I believe,
and Jackie. And he's going back to Chile where he's from, and it's in Spanish with Gael Garcia Bernal. And then the main actress is kind of unknown. Like this was kind of one of her first roles, I believe. And it's super polarizing, I feel. A lot of people hate it. A lot of people love it.
Yep.
The story is kind of this modern, it's 1M, Emma, where the other Emma is like a Victoria era. This is like set in modern times. And it's about like this group of dancers, and the main character's a dancer, but she's living in between these two worlds where she does like performance, like high art dance, but she also loves reggaeton music, which is seen as like this like dirty, like street kind of music that like people that go to prison listen to, and that's like looked down upon. And there's this like crazy story in between where she's like trying to divide a family. Or kind of like you think she's trying to divide a family, but in fact she's bringing them together because of a kid that she adopted. It's very sexual, so if you're not into over sexual stuff on screen, I definitely wouldn't watch this with your parents. But it's very interesting. It's the colors are beautiful, cinematography is great. But
is this more of like a thriller, or are you kind of
it's a thriller for
into
sure.
the drama on it?
I would say both. There's definitely very thriller aspects of it where I was like, I don't know what's going to happen next. And it definitely ends on a note I was not expecting, which I liked a lot. But yeah, that's getting kind of polarizing reviews. And then the other thing I was watching, I've been watching since you guys know I'm a big Star Wars fan. I finally caught the new season of Clone Wars, which is on Disney Plus.
Right.
And I'd say if you are a big Star Wars fan and you want to experience something a little bit, less polarizing than the new stuff, I'd say the new season of Clone Wars is going back to like the roots of what makes Star Wars like its best, and I'd recommend it.
Is this the series that Dave Filoni is in charge of?
Yeah, it got canceled like a long time ago, back when it was on Cartoon Network, and they revived it for Disney Plus.
Yeah, a lot of people seem to be in agreement that he's a very good.
He created Star Wars, practically.
Author for this series. Yeah,
he's the heir apparent of George Lucas. He taught him everything. So,
yeah. All right, so few interesting recommendations from Fernando. As for what I've been watching, there's a couple indie movies, a couple VOD and virtual theater releases that were on my radar. Oscilloscope Films, a company that we like a lot, put out the movie Clementine, this kind of low-key sexual thriller. Starred a familiar face in Sydney Sweeney, who, aside from being on Euphoria, where we like her, she's also in Big Time Adolescence, and has shown up in a few interesting movies. This one is written and directed by Lara Gallagher, and it has this kind of coming of age sexual awakening thing going on, while also being this sort of tense thriller in a way, or maybe a little bit of a suspense in that details are sparse and characters act mysteriously around one another. I was not super into this one, but it did show some promise in the way that it rides this tone between different types of films. So if the premise sounds interesting, or you want to just look at a potential female filmmaker who will be on the rise in Lara Gallagher, I would recommend maybe checking out Clementine. Another movie that maybe is a little bit more involving is called Blood and Money. It's kind of like a classic bag of money movie where a guy happens upon a bag of money after a hunting accident and just tries to sort of keep his head above water as people chase him and bodies start to pile up. It's a role that probably Liam Neeson would be comfortable in a more expensive version of this movie. So it's not necessarily like the craziest film. This one actually stars Tom Berenger, who is a familiar character actor. It's written and directed by a guy named John Barr. And if you're just kind of looking for like a low-key action suspense film, that might be worth your time. The thing that I've seen that a lot more people have seen is Westworld Season 3, which I know Art and I have been talking about, and he has yet to take the plunge into that third season of Westworld.
Not yet.
Honestly, I don't know if I can recommend it. At this point, I'm having a lot more fun listening to podcasts about Westworld that discuss all the possibilities and ways that the show could have been more interesting than I am watching this show.
Oh, man.
Which just always seems to take the long journey to go through to take a very short path.
It's like your math teacher, bro. That whole long way just to be like, I'm just kidding, you can do it this way.
Yeah, you don't need to show all your work. And Westworld this season did a lot of schlepping between different cities and around the globe. They had a whole story involving Jeffrey Wright's character where he's chasing Dolores across the continent, and all for basically nothing. They pretty much could have cut Jeffrey Wright and Ed Harris out of this third season entirely and completely left the story unchanged. There's maybe moments where Westworld does get exhilarating, and some choices they make that are fun. I'm always into the future tech that they come up with and the production design of the show, but the writing can just be so groan-worthy, whether it's talking about civil wars and there was nothing civil about it, or other stuff like that. It's a show that just kind of disappoints, I gotta say. As many cool ideas as they throw out there, like a drug called genre that's supposed to let you experience all the different film genres, and then you get an entire episode where the romance genre is just some slow motion shots of Evan Rachel Wood. Go crazy with it. Let me see some black and white. Start talking in French for no reason, and it just doesn't feel like.
Let's go.
It just doesn't feel like the creativity is necessarily all the way there. It's just a show that's involving a lot of interesting things, but not necessarily fully executed them. It's not exactly like Alex Garland levels of intricacies with sci-fi and future tech.
You think it's building to anything, though?
It always feels like it's building to something. I don't know, man. This season ends with and no spoilers here, but it ends with sort of like a big culmination of one of their major characters in a way that feels kind of like they might be writing this character off of the show. Maybe not. I don't think they are. But even if they were, it's done in such an underwhelming way that it's kind of like it just doesn't feel appropriate given how much time we have invested in this story.
Mm-hmm. That's literally all I've heard around.
Yeah. So would you say it's like the opposite of Game of Thrones, but it has the same effect? Where Game of Thrones sped everything up, this is like taking everything slow, but it's still having the same effect.
Kind of, because like this. Another thing that was interesting about the third season of Westworld is that it's the first season of Westworld with only 8 episodes rather than 10, and you figure like it would be speeding things up, but I found entire storylines completely unnecessary. I don't know. I could have done this. I could have done with a 4-episode season of Westworld this year. That would have been fine to me.
So you liked it, okay?
Positive.
Yeah. Lastly, I'll throw out the Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt interactive special. Just showed up on Netflix
11
recently.
hours long?
It's kind of interesting in that I thought they had ended this show. They talked about ending the show, and then they bring back everybody to do a different spin on the interactive special, because we've seen Netflix do this before with Black Mirror and with that show Man vs. Wild. But here it's kind of gives you a bunch of different alternate takes in a way. For me, the way that it works is that it lets them vamp on different ideas, and it's like, what would be the funniest way for this person to go about this thing? It's kind of like when you see the outtakes of a comedy and you see like them throw out 5 different lines. It's kind of like the plotted out version of that in a way. It's like, what would would it be funnier to call this character or call that character? So in a way, it kind of works, even though the plot's not necessarily that involving.
Yeah.
It's almost like so easygoing that there isn't the pressure of like a Black Mirror Bandersnatch where it's like, I don't know if I should throw myself off of a balcony or tell him to jump. Here it's like,
should I take the drugs or not? Like, yeah. Should I hit my
gag,
father? Yeah.
Which gag sounds like it'll be a little funnier? So
that's funny.
It's a little bit of a less pressure-filled interactive special.
That's cool. That's like, I can't even be upset at that, because they found a way to use all of their B lines. Like we always have troubles. Like, what thumbnail should we post? Netflix was like, give them the option to do both.
Right.
That's, okay.
Cool. And if you want to find the Easter egg with all of the deleted scenes, you have to call Donna Marie a couple times and push 3 and listen to the entire taco-themed 12 Days of Christmas song, and then push 3 again.
I'm going to wait till it's on YouTube.
Oh.
Anyway, let us know what you've been watching in the comments below on YouTube or by shooting us an email. The address for that is intercutpod@gmail.com. We are going to move on to the yay or nay, and it's a movies and TVs themed yay or nay. It's the Reviewapalooza, because there's so much stuff that's come out that we can't just talk about it in what we're watching. We need to talk about more things. We're going to start it off with The Half of It. This is the new Netflix romantic dramedy written and directed by Alice Wu. It was a Tribeca Award winner about a cash-strapped teen who agrees to write love letters for a jock and then unexpectedly finds herself falling for the woman that she's writing letters for. It's kind of another cute entry in Netflix's list of teen skewing romantic comedies. Art, did you think it was better, though, than the average romantic comedy from Netflix?
If we were to consider the average romantic comedy being something like Sierra Burgess is a Loser, then this 100% kills it. Because while I was watching it, I was like, yo, this is Sierra Burgess done right. And then it's, I don't want to blank on the name over here, but it's obviously based off of the like old play, like which is exactly Cyrano or whatever it's called, which is exactly what Burgess was about as well. I was like, oh, it's the premise. Okay, they're both taking it from the same. This does it better. It had one Tribeca, like you had said, and I really like hearing the behind the scenes that the director has been talking about. I think the performances, and even just the way that they shoot things. There's a bunch of moments that I really liking that Netflix is doing, because I am very critical of their 80s present shows. You know, they want to be in the present and have all the anxiety, but then they don't know how to do cell phones. So, hey, let's just revert back to the 80s. Nah, I really like how they do it here. There's a scene, everyone's in the classroom. I think it's like the choir classroom, and they all get a text, and you see it all come up at the same time. They laugh. Teacher goes around, oblivious to the digital world going on. I thought they captured that pretty well. There's a lot of editing decisions and cuts. Just with the movement, it flows. The main guy's a doofus. Complete and utter doofus, as you broke down with the plot. But I really do like her. I want to make sure Leah Lewis, seeing her performance, then seeing her talk in interviews. Oh, she an actress. Gotcha.
Yeah. I thought
that was fun.
Both Leah Lewis and you mentioned Daniel Dimer as Paul, the kind of like oblivious jock.
Goofy.
I thought this was like an excellent showcase for both of those young actors who were just so charming and affable in the parts. Like, especially Leah Lewis, she's playing in Ellie this kind of what could be a very frustrating character in how closed off she is to other people and how reserved she is. You know, we want her to do more. We, as our protagonist, as the person we're rooted, we have a rooting interest in. But she keeps the performance really believable throughout. And you mentioned the Cyrano thing, that this is a film sort of based on the play Cyrano de Bergerac. I think when I was beginning of the movie, I was worried about that because it does really feel familiar. There's a lot of films that sort of take that general conceit, and then, as the movie progresses, it does have this cleverness to the way that it goes about it. You mentioned some of the beautiful sequences. Like, there's that great sequence in which they communicate to each other through graffiti on a wall. And it takes the idea of corresponding through letters and elevates it and makes it cinematic in a way that a lot of these movies don't necessarily do. I think it had a lot of personality. Obviously, these are like hyper literate teens in a way that like it's like reminiscent of Dawson's Creek or something. It's like, Sorkin doesn't really write dialogue for teenagers, but like this is what it would sound like. And like, that can be maybe unrealistic, but I think it helps gets to the like the big emotions that these characters are feeling, and it is expressive in a way that feels genuine, even if it might not be super genuine. Fernando, what were your impressions of the half of it?
And I just thought of something in terms of the hyperliterate. I didn't graduate high school too long ago, and I'm pretty sure no girl in my high school knew who Wim Wenders was. I'm pretty sure. But yeah,
you just didn't meet him, bro.
That's true.
You just didn't meet him.
That's true. But yeah, I thought it was a cute movie. I do think their chemistry, Paul and Ellie, was really good. But I will say one of my favorite, if not my favorite character in the movie, was the dad. Just because, like, what a great dad, showing his daughter all the classics. And then, that line he has where it's like, this is the best part. But yeah, I thought it was cute. I will say there are some moments, obviously, that like go into like the classic teenager coming of age tropes, or that have characters that are very like streamlined, like the other jock character who was very also goofy, and he was like, Ellie, I know you love me, and I was just like, get off my screen. But I do like the three of them characters and the other girl who I forgot the character name. But yeah, I thought it was a cute movie.
Yeah. So I think we're all in agreement that this is a yes on this movie.
Yeah, and my favorite line out of it's got to be her doing the homework for the entire class. And the teacher going, continue doing that. Then I'd have to read their papers if it was the other way. Yeah,
that was funny.
Another show that we've all seen on Netflix is the Eddy. It's the show in a French club about the everyday chaos of dealing with live music in the heart of Paris. This one has 2 episodes. The first 2 episodes directed by Damien Chazelle. It's also got an interesting cast starting with Andre Holland as well as Joanna Kulig and Amanda Stenberg. Fernando, what did you like more, the Eddy or the soundtrack to the Eddy?
Okay, I love the soundtrack for the Eddy. So I could talk. I've been wanting to talk about this for a while. So feel free to stop me if I go too much. But here's my first gripe with the Eddy, and it's not even the show's fault. Whoever like the people marketing, the people talking about the show.
Agreed.
Damien Chazelle's The Eddy.
Yes, I agree. Yeah,
And look,
they do it, and they're pretending like they're not.
Yeah.
But they are.
Yeah, and here's the thing. I didn't even like look. I didn't go on IMDb. I didn't see like the credits for this. So going in, I thought this was Damien Chazelle's The Eddy. And when I saw after the third episode, it was a different director. I was like, hold up, wait, he didn't do the whole season. And then I found out
only the first two of it.
Yeah, and then I found out he didn't even write it or create it. I was like, okay, so they just brought him on to direct it, like Fincher with Mindhunter, and he produces it. But in terms of the actual show, it feels to me like there's a plot A and a plot B. And yes. I like the plot A where it's like the bands, the family dynamic.
Father,
and the plot
daughter.
B, yeah, is
the crime stuff.
Yeah.
Needs to go in nothing. Just the trash bin, the recycling bin. I don't know what that felt like. He was talking about how it feels like there's no creator, and I've seen this be discussed everywhere where nobody knows if it's Damien Chazelle. Is it Jack? Is it Thorne's? Right? He's the other guy.
Yeah.
Jack Thorne,
he's the
right?
creator.
Because I'm seeing right now that it does say created by Jack Thorne.
Yeah.
So it's his show then.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's really his show.
He needed to cut down half that.
Yeah. It's really. I think they said that he got the idea because he heard the musicians, like the composers. They had all the songs, and he was like, "Oh, I need to write a show around this." Which the songs are. I love the soundtrack. I think it's great. But yeah, that police storyline is, as the season progressed, it just got way more and more less interesting. And every time he went to that police station, I was like, "Go back to the club, please."
Yeah. My favorite part was the daughter, the father-daughter dynamic. While the band stuff was cool, it took me a little bit to get into it until I realized. Oh, okay. Because it's like, how are you supposed to imitate jazz, right? And in the first two episodes, which I don't know if you mentioned it, Zach, the film, shooting with film.
Not yet.
If y'all want to mention if I'm missing anything, but Damien got to
for
film
whatever reason, Netflix chose to let Damien Chazelle film the first two episodes on film, and then the following 6 episodes were all shot digitally, which you do notice there's a noticeable difference in grain and film stock quality between episodes 2 and 3.
Obviously, Damien would be given the money.
I don't know if that necessarily like affected my enjoyment of it as a whole, but it is sort of like it's a weird shift midway through a series.
You can't help but think, most of your budget went in there. If this is a show and you got Damien Chazelle, who loves jazz and everything's on the go, and is probably wasting how much film trying to get sporadic moments, which is clearly the way that it's shot. It's like, unless they had him on a tight, unless you schedule jazz, which he's told us in 3 movies you can't. I don't even know how much they spent on those first 2 episodes. No wonder they had to go back to digital. Maybe they had him doing 2 episodes and they went, Damien, this cannot continue. He said, then I can't continue. And they're like, great. Let's hire other guys to do it in digital. But there are those moments where it captures them just like in a moment, just chilling. They're able to kind of like how Decker shoots her movies, where all of a sudden you end up in a nostril, but you're like, oh yeah, this is the shot. This got the emotion we needed. I don't know.
There is a curiosity and a energy to the way that his camera moves, particularly in those first 2 episodes, that I found particularly like stylish and captivating in a way. Like I was in awe of the way that it was assembled. That Damien Chazelle's a guy who's gotten some criticism in the past for the visuals of the band playing not matching up to the audio of the band playing, and I'm sure he went into that one being like, nobody's gonna fucking talk to me about shit not matching up in this one. So the actual photography of the jazz playing is pretty great here. And also, I agree that it's at its best when it is kind of this like family dynamic and this sort of simmering quality of trying to put together something. The crime element to the show, it takes a turn in the first episode that feels like it's from a completely different show, first of all, and then the rest of the stuff feels either misjudged or kind of like strange. I don't know if it's because I'm used to the American cop dynamic and this is in France, but it just doesn't feel right.
I did like that though. including the guy from Les Miserables that they had. I know a big pitch as I was reading interviews was that they wanted to show France as France, not France as how France wants to be seen, which I found was interesting.
Right.
But yeah, sorry, keep going.
Were you also hinting at not really getting super into it right away? Because I found the first episode, I found it hard to grab hold of the first episode.
Yeah, I text you guys when I finally got into it in episode 3. So I do want to rewatch the series again because, as many have said, it's a hangout miniseries. Which, do you guys really think it's going to be a miniseries?
That's the other thing. That
it ends right
when
we're like, we got it. Cool, I want to hang out with these guys, and then they're like,
because the way they title the episodes, it seems like, okay, the last episode's the last episode, but the way the story ends, I'm like, wait, what's happening? Yeah.
Are you interested in more episodes of the Eddy?
I have no idea.
They shoot them all on film.
Yeah.
Why not?
So that's maybe more of a mixed recommendation across the board on the Eddy.
Yeah, surprisingly, I was expecting this to be like a really big release, and a lot more people were talking about some of the other shows we'll be talking about in a bit.
I did have a moment where I was like, man, this jazz singer who sounds Polish has a really good voice that sounds familiar. And then it turns out it's the singer from Cold War. So that was another cool little bit of casting there. I like Joanna Kulig's presence. And Audrey Holland is really good. The acting is really good. I don't know if we specified that either.
Yeah.
He's great. Amanda's really great in the show as well. I thought they both killed it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Dead to Me season 2.
Let's go, baby.
The twist and turn filled Netflix drama returns for another season. Christina Applegate, Linda Cardellini, and their misadventures back for 10 more episodes full of cliffhangers. Art. We got a chance to watch all these episodes. Did the second season stack up to the first?
No. We rewatched them. There's something about that first season that they took a little extra time on the stitching, on the inside stitching, Zach, that no one's even supposed to see. I'm not saying they rushed the second, because I still really enjoy the second season. I'm not saying they rushed it, but it feels a little different. And I also think that there's a lot of and there's a lot of editing choices and stuff like that. Could be the turnover, because you have all the time in the world to do the first season. They try to rush you with the second season, and I wonder if Netflix does that, because I've noticed many times they go to a second season, and the turnover rate is usually what causes a lot of things to go really quick. I do overall like it, and I still think that they're sticking to all of the exact theming, with it being like, it's a comedy show about grief, really, at its core.
Right.
And it's these two friends that are coping with it and finding each other as a form of solitude, as a form of escape from all the crazy stuff that they face. I don't think the comedy works as great the second season as it did the first season for me, and that has to do a lot with the editing. I feel there was some scenes, and you guys may know what I'm talking about. I really don't want to spoil it, because I know we got all these things about what not to spoil, and I mean, we're Intercut, and I'd like to think we're pretty cool. We like all you Intercuties who listen to us. But the official people just did not care about those rules. So I don't know when it changes for us, Zach, when we can talk about whatever. But I'll try to keep it non-spoilerish completely. There's certain editing things that happen. There's one specific reveal that happens with the music that's going da-da-da-da-da-da, which is a cool
best
edit.
Twist of the season.
That's great twist. I felt like that's the editing I would find like in a CW show, not in the season one of this. And that's just to say one, but there's multiples of that. There's a Venmo joke that's made, and I'm like, no, you're a real estate agent. You would know what Venmo is, but I get the bit that you're going for there. And I feel that they did a lot of that. A lot of jokes that felt like, I'm older, you're younger. There was a lot of influencer jokes that also happened as well. I was like, oh, y'all better than this as well. But overall, I still like the second season. I like the relationships that were made. It ended not a cliffhanger. It's like a cliffhanger, but it's not even a cliffhanger, because you think, oh my goodness, is that person? No, we just heard them. And there's not an 11th okay. A lot of these Netflix stuff are just ending. Like they just
the second season ends with a moment that happens that I think leaves a character we care less about as the one who's going to be worried going into the new season.
That's what it is. That's exactly what it is.
you mentioned how finely stitched together that first season is, and it does
Beautiful.
feel like something that was like heavily plotted down to the T. That when they're leaving a couple breadcrumbs out there, they're doing it because they know they have a payoff coming.
Easily.
And I found this season was a lot of trying to somehow keep the wheels spinning. They wrote themselves into a little bit of a corner with the way that season 1 ends, and just some of the decisions that are necessary in order to keep this going as a show that clearly they're interested in doing more than just 2 seasons of.
Yep. Which is really confusing to me.
You kind of have to make some decisions that are a little bit less than believable. There are certain conclusions made by people investigating crimes that would not be their conclusions in any reasonable world. But I think what Dead to Me revealed in its second season is how heavily it is a soap opera. Some of these shows kind of hide their soap opera tendencies, but when you're
don't say that to me. It's true.
When you're suddenly revealing previously unmentioned identical twins, like you're kind of a soap opera, and maybe you're a smartly written and really well acted soap opera, but it's starting to feel a little bit like that.
I really like Linda Cardellini in it.
She's very good, and that's ultimately what elevates this beyond being, something that's not a little like cheesy. Is
their
that
performances
the
are still
relationship
there.
between these two is so good, and their dynamic is so fun that you want to stick with them.
You still root
they
for it.
They bring in Natalie Morales, an actress that I really love, and she's a great dynamic, a great addition to the show. So
her banter was great as well.
I'm still down to hang out with this show, although it's not necessarily as it feels a little bit more like Candy than the first season did.
Yeah.
Solar Opposites, it's the new show from Rick and Morty co-creator Justin Roiland that just unveiled its first season of 8 episodes on Hulu. This is not with co-creator Dan Harmon, but it still has the Rick and Morty vibes. We've been talking about how this kind of feels like the American Dad to the Family Guy of Rick and Morty. Art, was this up to the standard that we expect from Rick and Morty?
I personally don't have a standard for Rick and Morty.
All right.
People tell me there is a standard for Rick and Morty. I see them do everything that they claimed was against that standard of Rick and Morty. I think what they do is everything that everybody else is doing, but before they can get called out on it, they go, "Ha, is that funny, right?" Look at everybody else that does spin-offs. Then do the spin-off. Commercials and selling, then do the commercial. They make them good. They make them well. They make them hilarious. But they're still doing all the things that they said they weren't going to do. I don't know how long the shtick will last. We have talked about 72 episodes being done for Rick and Morty. And, I mean, I don't know when they'll write themselves to a corner. But they're still going. So, I don't know. I'm not sure what the consensus is on this show. I thought it was okay. The humor was a lot meaner than I expected it to be. But it was okay. It was okay.
Yeah, I mean, I have cynical underlined in my notes because this is just like this is a show that just dislikes people a lot more than Rick and Morty, I feel like. In fact, I think I might have even tweeted that this is a show that's like all Rick and no Morty. There's none of the heart that you kind of want from to sort of redeem some of these characters.
No.
And like it can't, it's weird because it's beyond certain things like the presence of Justin Roiland's voice. He does the voice for Rick and Morty, and he does the voice of the main 2 characters on this show. It's the similar animation style. It's also like this casual and aggravated use of this mind-blowing, hyper-advanced future tech. There's so many ways in which this show mimics Rick and Morty, but it misses the kind of central thing that kind of makes it watchable is this dynamic between the characters in Rick and Morty.
Did you get to see this? Because I know you're a bigger Rick and Morty fan than the two of us. And I don't hate Rick and Morty.
Yeah. No, I haven't yet. Especially, I think because after I saw Zach's tweet, I was like, oh, that's kind of unfortunate. And I still have to finish Rick and Morty, the new season. So I don't know if I'll probably watch that before I watch Solar Opposites.
I'd ask what Rick and Morty fan thinks, but they've probably already let us know down below in the comment section.
Episode 2 has a green room reference, and I still didn't like it.
I hear it gets better towards the end, because I heard that a lot of the jokes that they make end up becoming like central plot points towards the end, which I know Rick and Morty does it all like a throwaway line ends up becoming like the whole premise of an episode later. So I'm sure there's still that. I'll be watching in the background. I was only able to catch 3. But 3 is always enough to let you know the tone of a show for the most part.
Right.
So I think Rick and Morty fans will like it, but
I watched the first 4, and I just did not enjoy any of them, so it's hard for me to get past that. That being said, I do believe that sometimes comedies in particular take a little time to find their footing. So
for sure,
I'm sure by season 3 I'll hear that it's great.
Do you think this is part of the 70 deal? Like if I don't know if this is,
I think it's
part of the continuity.
This is a Hulu exclusive. Yeah.
Huh.
I think it's a different deal.
Okay.
Yeah. Josh Trank returned to our lives. The director of Chronicle, director of Fantastic Four, back out on his own, writing, directing, and editing the film Capone, starring Tom Hardy as a 47-year-old Al Capone. After years in prison, when he starts suffering from dementia, he's haunted by his violent past. He while hanging out at his Florida mansion. Art, we've both seen this one. What did you think of the return of Josh Trank?
Linda Cardellini was great.
Yeah, shouts to our girl Linda Cardellini.
Other than that,
one episode.
This should have been called. They should have kept the name Fonzo. Or called it The Haunting of Al Capone, because all he does is see images of his past and poop his pants, and that's all it is. I love Tom Hardy. That means that I've seen Tom Hardy plenty of times to know, you're just having my man default to the Tom Hardy from Lawless. Tom Hardy that makes noises. I've seen y'all default my man to this, okay?
Yeah.
Supposedly this was a cerebral comeback. Josh Trank called it his first real film.
Yeah.
First real film.
That's... Shout out to the great Matt Patch's article.
Fantastic breakdown that he had there. But if you recall, that whole BTS, from Fantastic Four was so bad with, him belittling Mara to all the rumors that came out. I still have the quote here, right? There have been a lot of times, and just a reminder, he had 3 dogs damage $100,000 worth of a house that they were renting, all right? And he was just like, dog's going to do what dog's going to do. There have been a lot of times when I've been told, this is how you should handle this. And I handle it in a different way, and it turns out in my favor, he said. Then there have also been times where I've been wrong, and it has only resulted in complete disaster. That is Snyder Cut energy if I've ever seen any. I think that this is a man that definitely, at 26 years old, right? He became the youngest director to have a #1 movie at the box office.
Right.
That was Chronicle. And him... growing up, he believed that he could be the next Spielberg. Spielberg was 27 when he had his first #1. That's something you can't ever take away. And I think that there is an ego that lives inside this man. That no matter what, he had Venom, Shadow of the Colossus movie.
Oh my gosh.
And a Star
deals
Wars
to
film.
make all of these.
Deals to make these things. And they all fell through. And instead he decided, you know what I want to make? I want to make Capone, where Tom Hardy just poops all over the place. And if y'all don't take it seriously... Well, I guess you can't, because who did he have as his lawyer? The damn writer of the Chappelle Show appears out of nowhere. I had to find Neil Brennan's Twitter page to see that. Was this a last-minute addition? He's like, I don't usually make movies, but when I do, I just appear the last second. He's smiling through half of his shots. And yes, this is one of the scenes where Tom Hardy poops his pants. And there's a comedian sitting right there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I do think to an extent Josh Trank knows what he's doing here, and that he's trying to show this grotesque image of this awful man who's become haunted by his past and now is just deteriorating in the last year of his life, right? He's not trying to make a hagiography or make us like Al Capone. He's trying to make this guy as gross as he was in life, I guess. That doesn't mean it's any pleasant to watch.
Yep.
That doesn't mean that there's any real insight to be gained from watching Tom Hardy repeatedly defile himself. It's it's like a thoroughly unpleasant movie.
Yeah.
Just from scene to scene, it's
sloppy.
It's vile and it's
Sloppy.
gross, and I to an extent I can admire the sheer like crazy adventure that Tom Hardy is going on in this character, but I think he does this thing where if he's not reined in, he will just go to he'll do like 150% acting rather than giving you what you need.
Thank you.
And like, he'll put on a voice, and rather than being a voice that feels like a human, it feels like a put on. To me, he sounds like a cartoon dog with laryngitis in this movie.
A little bit.
And it doesn't make me think like, oh wow, what a performance. It makes me think he's trying so hard. He's doing so much to make himself look ugly because he wants to be this character actor. And I think it requires a little bit more of like a lighter touch. If they're actually trying to get this to work, if they want this performance to be something you believe. It's weirdly entertaining in parts, like when he's running around the mansion in a diaper with a gold machine gun. Like, it's kind of dumbly hilarious. That's not the kind of movie that sticks with me, though, or makes me feel like it's worth my time or worth recommending.
Yeah.
Agreed. He sounds like Kermit with Corona, but like that's not going to be something that you remember by the end of the year. And half of it is like, what was the purpose of it? Because he calls it like Trent calls it his reawakening as well. But I was like, this is a miserable time in Al Capone's life where he didn't know anything. He was going through like dementia practically as well, and then just dies. Like it's he had just spent the previous years in Alcatraz. What's it called? Yeah, Alcatraz. Is that where it's at?
Yeah, Alcatraz.
What's the one in San Francisco? Yeah.
Alcatraz.
I'm like, what would he be doing? I just visited that last summer. There is no inspiration you get from there, of course. But yeah, I agree with you.
I think it is kind of interesting, like the ideas behind it. If you look at it kind of in the vein of Irishman without like the build-up where it's like the last of it.
I wrote that in here. I said, because they even have, what's her name, who was in the, I feel so bad disrespecting her, who was also in The Irishman as well. She plays a character in this, Buffalino's wife, if I'm not mistaken. But I thought the exact same thing. It's like a bad version of The Irishman of, this gangster on his final days. And I was like, The Irishman did the psyche way better.
Yeah.
So I never felt like you actually get into his mind. The most that I felt were his reactions when he's looking. He all of a sudden finds himself back in a room, and the guy's like, "Boss, let me show you how to do it," and just overly does it, and he just gives a face, and you can't help but laugh. Like you cannot show this in public and expect not for people not to laugh with Josh Trank in the room.
Yeah.
Right.
Like it's just goofy the way they zoom in on him, and was my face for half of the movie was just
When he
Tom Hardy looking at the stuff that was happening.
When he put the carrot in his mouth. Capone.
No.
Just every bodily function, vomit and piss and shit and spit and I mean, like, it's good for Tom Hardy for willing to like put his performance on that risky of a edge, but it's just not. It feels like more like watching The Room than watching I don't know some Scorsese film.
Dude, there are so many Al Capone movies. You should not be on the bottom half of the list. All I'm saying.
Yeah. The Great. It's a new show coming to Hulu this Friday. Stars Nicholas Hoult and Elle Fanning. In 18th century Russia, Elle Fanning is gets married to the Emperor of Russia and finds herself suddenly the empress of a great nation, or maybe not so great. It's got a little bit of an irreverent edge, even though it takes place in this period piece setting. The characters don't speak like they do in period pieces, and it's got a quirky humor to it, maybe a little bit inspired by The Favorite, although I wouldn't say it's nearly as weird as that.
Same writer. Same writer.
Oh, is it really the same writer?
There
we
go.
go. I mean,
right off at the beginning, they tell you, what is it? The Great, based off a true story. Sometimes, literally, sometimes. That's every beginning. Sometimes, Yeah, I agree with you.
There will be 10 episodes on Hulu. I've caught the first 3. I think you've caught the first 2, 3.
I was almost done with the third one, so very close to that as well. Yeah.
So how are you enjoying The Great so far?
So earlier in the year, like right when the quarantine had started, I had actually, I didn't get to finish Emma, but I had seen the beginning of it as well as a bunch of interviews with the behind the scenes. And I was like, oh, they're going for the same tone that I'd seen in Wild Nights with Emily, The Favorite, which again was same writer here. And it keeps that very satirical tone throughout it. I'm trying to find one of my favorite lines here because she herself, has this whole concept of what love is and what she's going to do for the country and everything. And then Peter the Third of Russia comes in and he's like, nah, I'm gonna do something else. And there's a really funny scene where she just straight up asks him, because she's Catherine the Great, which there's also an HBO series with Helen Mirren that's out. But she tells him, yo, were you the Great? He's like, no, that's my father. He's like, oh, that's crazy because I'm the Great. So it definitely has that back and forth. It's definitely like, 20 writers for a show that takes place in the past. But it's kind of funny. I actually find it funnier than The Favorite.
I mean, I think it's a little bit more like punchline oriented than The Favorite. There's
which I guess is why I like it more.
Joke. I find The Favorite to be a much more like richly complex world, and the way in which the women of The Favorite end up sort of like torturing one another, I think is a far more interesting thing. But there is like a surprisingly interesting plot here in The Great too, in that Elle Fanning is sort of installing herself as a potential successor and or usurper even of Peter the Great. And there's this like there's this kind of power struggle, and she's also trying to navigate her way without being killed, because this is a time in which if you threaten the king, or the emperor, he'll just murder you.
And what's she do in the first
some
episode?
Of the ways, well, in some of the ways in which it'll lean into that depraved sort of medieval, like lack of morals, it can be very funny. Just the way is in which he uses people and dismisses people. It reminds us of sort of the traditional narratives that we've seen, but has this funny nature to it. So, I mean, whether it's the repartee, like you're saying, or it's just the inversion of this period setting, I do think it's pretty enjoyable. Nick Holt's very funny in it. Elle Fanning is really good in it too.
Mm-hmm. I thought she was pretty good. I am very curious to see where it goes, because I remember reading the synopsis to it before, right? And she says that she wants to take control and be able to, push everything, resolve changes. All she has to do is kill her husband, defeat the church, baffle the military, and get the court on her side. And I guess that's how the whole season's broken down, because right in episode 1, she's ready to kill the dude. And by episode 2, she's starting a coup. But I do think it's really interesting. I'm curious to see where it goes. Nicholas Hoult clearly loves to be in this world since he's still at it again. But yeah, this is one of the ones that I'm very much looking forward to finishing, because I love the titles. First episode, The Great. Second episode, The Beard. Third episode, and you, sir, are no Peter the Great. It's the one I was talking about. And they get even crazier. So I'm excited for it. I really like it.
So I'm definitely going to stick with that one too. Maybe we'll come back and talk a little bit more about it once we've seen more episodes, but we are both recommending that. I made a mistake though. We got one more show that we want to talk about, and it's Control Z, which is premiering on Netflix this Friday. They've sent us the first 2 episodes, but there will be 8. Fernando, tell me a little bit about Control Z.
So Control Z, right off the bat, this baffled me, because I didn't even know it was a Mexican show, or like in Spanish. Yeah. I was like, wait, this is in Spanish? So Mexican series on Netflix about, the modern world, technology, set in a school. You have different characters. You have the rich kid, you have the bully, you have the one who's the new kid,
the weird one. Yeah.
And basically, there's a hacker that's going around exposing a bunch of secrets from everyone. Stuff gets crazy. Everyone's trying to figure out who it is. It wasn't particularly my jam, the first 2 episodes. But I'll let Art say what he thinks about it.
That's okay.
Yeah.
I like the idea that they're going for of looking at like technology. Again, we can continue to complain that they never focus in on the technology. I think they do a really good job here. She's practically Psych. The main character that we follow is Sophia, and they pretty much, the whole student body's like, you can solve it because you're like Psych. You look at everything and you piece it together. So they want her to pretty much solve the case because whoever this person is, it's a Twitter account that is just exposing all of their secrets one by one, and you realize that it's almost kind of like The Box. Some of these people get told, hey, I'm going to reveal your secrets unless you tell me a secret on somebody else. And then you realize, oh, idiots, they all fell for it. And that's how everyone's secrets start going out. There's been some hints here and there. I know that they sent us 2 episodes because I guess episode 3 must be a bombshell. There's a total of, how many did you say?
8.
8. So I don't know where they're going to take it. I still think it's very much in the vein of an Elite, the Society, a lot of the teen ones that they have.
It sounds a little to me like 13 Reasons Why without the questionable depictions of suicide.
Bro, it's 13 Reasons Why down to the damn therapist actually being the rapist almost to a degree. Like this man's talking about allegations that they say at the beginning. They're like, we need to throw this party. He's like, well, no, there was allegations. And he goes, I mean, the allegations were just rumors. I'm like, bro, you're the therapist of the school.
Yeah.
So yes, 13 Reasons Why. All of the Netflix shows, 2 episodes isn't enough to deem whether it's better or worse than the other ones. But it's okay. It's okay. Yeah. It's okay so far.
I will say my one big gripe with this show is, you as Mexican, why is the texting in English? That annoyed the hell out of me. I was like, why?
Everything, yeah. And there's a lot more than language that's broken down between Spanish and English, you know? Like there's por, you know? We would never do times something, but in Spanish you do use the times table thing to say like por whatever. Kind of like how we do with a slash as for short for with. There's different things like that. I don't get it. I don't know if that's a translation thing that Netflix automatically hard-coded, but yeah, that was a little... I noticed that too.
Yeah, that threw me off, but yeah.
All right, so maybe not recommending Control Z, but we've been talking about a lot of new stuff. Let us know if you watched any of these movies and TV shows and whether or not you liked them or did not like them. But that's about it for Yay or Nay. We're going to go on to the interview and answer questions by you, the Intercuties. So be an Intercutie and send us a question by leaving it in the comments on YouTube or hitting us up on social media at IntercutPod or emailing us intercutpod@gmail.com. We're going to start it out with a question that we got from Instagram this week, asking, what do we think will be the next company or thing that innovates and pushes us to the next level of storytelling? We've already had the fake James Dean, movies shot on green screen, VR, interactive movies, etc. What do we think the next big thing will be? Art, I know you like to read up on the latest happenings in streaming entertainment and such. Did you get any insight from one of your newsletters? Do you have the next big thing for us?
I don't know about the next big thing. I have some ideas. I still think VR is our next retelling to the future. I mean, everything is going at it. South by just announced their VR thing through Oculus. I also am aware that last year when we were at Sundance, Oculus made a deal. They made one of those deals for an amount that it's like, they made the deal that's going to affect everybody in 5 years. So I'm waiting for that. I truly do think that VR is going to be the next big one that they're gearing up for. On top of that, Alejandro Iñárritu made one not too long ago. The last project that he made was a VR film about crossing the border. Bad. Exactly, but he did it all out. You need like an entire setup to do it. So I don't know if that may be the next big thing, or if it just, if we're talking about movies in general. There was that one time you and I had covered what the Tower, the Dark Tower series was supposed to be with Tom Hardy, which was that multi-platform storytelling.
Yeah.
And they had an idea, but it fell apart. Now, it didn't sound like you need to watch the Marvel Disney Plus series to know the movies. It sounded like some actual thing where it was a massive story told through all these different avenues. I am a big fan.
Movies and TV and graphic novels.
I know we're talking VR, but I am a big fan of AR as well, and ARG marketing, which Cloverfield has done, which a lot of other movies have done, which is make the story itself an ongoing thing. It's not even lore. It's like, which like Star Wars, they let you know what's happening in the galaxy far, far away. This is like ongoing storytelling that's happening through technology. Sometimes even being able to find things. Like Cloverfield was hiding puzzle pieces that they were missing in the movie. So I don't know if that may be a new form of technology, just because really it's engagement that I feel people want. Even though we're seeing on YouTube, if you can find the comment section, it's not down below. It's a little bit higher now. I think that may be the way that we go, but I still think that for the foreseeable future, Ready Player One, it's going to be Ready Player One style. Yeah. That's what I think it's going to be. Being able to input yourself into a movie. Kind of like the Westworld episode, but better.
Can't believe nobody said Queeby.
I did say Quibi. I said it earlier.
Wait, did you?
Yeah. You did.
Okay. I don't actually think that, but
did you see what he said? We got to talk about that just for a little bit. Did you see what this man said? This man really blamed it all on the coronavirus and said, "Yo, I know I'm a media guy trying to take down Trump, but I'm gonna sound like Trump by saying I take no responsibility." Boy, get out of here.
Yeah, maybe not Jeffrey Katzenberg's best call there.
Nope.
I kind of agree on the VR thing, just because even though we have a lot of people who are doing VR movies and making new VR games, like it just hasn't had that point.
We haven't broken through it yet. Yeah.
Yeah, like augmented reality was a thing, and then Pokemon Go kind of took that to like a whole other level where it became this thing that a lot of people were participating in. I don't know if VR necessarily has had that moment yet, and it might be up next to have that kind of moment.
Hey, I have an A to Z video that's 3 years old. Didn't do well at all, but I stand by it when it finally comes to fruition. Everything I said 3 years ago. But we'll see.
Yeah.
Also, if we're just talking about like the next big thing, as in like what's going to be a big thing in the next couple of months, drive-in movie theaters are back, I think.
Did they open some near you?
They're opening on May 15th.
They're hustling and bustling over here as well, trying to get some of the movies out. They're playing older movies at the moment, but hey, that's what you use May and all of June for, and half of July, so that Tenet comes out. Because Nolan said he ain't moving that one, so.
Yeah.
I got all excited about the idea of going to a movie because I just haven't in so long now. And I looked at all the drive-in movie theater websites, and it's like Sonic, 8 o'clock.
Yeah.
Birds of Prey, 9:55. Bloodshot, 8 o'clock.
That's funny.
Bad Boys for Life, 9:55.
Ooh, 9:55. I think I can make it over there.
I think I'll wait a little bit longer.
Hop on a plane with a mask to go see Bad Boys.
We also got a question asking if we'd show off our Blu-ray collections. I know this is like a big thing on YouTube.
Yeah.
To like have a Blu-ray collection and show people like this. This is mine. It's I think it's like
what you got?
10 movies.
Nice.
This is Caitlin's. It's a copy of Elf that's also I think in French. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not somebody who has a big Blu-ray collection. My physical media collecting was back when we were still buying DVDs.
Gotcha.
I kind of refused to rebuy a lot of that stuff.
I feel you.
But I got a bunch of DVDs over there on the shelf. I know we don't like those anymore.
Nah, those are DVDs still have it. Some DVDs even look better. But I have mine. I'll say this. By the end of the year, I'll make one for Intercut of all the stuff because I really do believe in collecting physical media. And I've had the chance, more so with 4K, because I really like the resolution of 4K. There's many 4K. Times where I was like, yeah, there'd be times where I see like a Blu-ray, and you know, like when it looks so cheap, you know, when they put the discs on top of each other, I was like, what are you doing here? This is supposed to be an item. But yeah, I'm definitely growing mine. I have a bunch of Blu-rays, DVDs, and stuff. But hey, that's a good collection, dude.
I have nothing.
Really?
Yeah, mainly because I started like my affinity for film like at a later age, and like
it's expensive.
I wasn't gonna. Yeah, it's really expensive. Like a friend of ours, my roommate Andres, he has a pretty decent sized one, but he's thrown so much money into that because he's bought like Criterions, like the big collections, and those are really expensive.
That's a collection right there. That's something you're keeping for when the power goes out. Guess who's got the movies?
Yeah.
Yeah, lots of ways to enjoy movies and appreciate them. If you've got a big Blu-ray collection, feel free to send it to us. We'd love to see it.
If y'all want to see my film reel collection, Because movies only matter.
Yeah, nobody asks about my laser discs in the
Yeah,
back,
what about
by the
his
way. I
laser
got a couple
disc, bro?
laser
What?
discs. We also got we got a lot of people who had thoughts on our best actors under 30 bracket. Mostly people that we left off of the bracket. A couple people mentioned Stephen James, and
yes,
they're right. That was my bad.
Yes,
we talk about Homecoming basically every other episode of this
30?
show. So, I think he might be returning on season 2. We will find out.
Is he under 30?
Oh yes, he's under 30 still.
I swear to you, if Stephen James is like 23 years old, I'm gonna.
We also
same age.
Yeah,
born same year.
It's a little bit depressing. We also could have mentioned his If Beale Street Could Talk co-star Kiki Lane, although I don't know if she would have made it. She probably would have been an honorable mention. We were just talking about Amanda Stenberg in the Eddie. She maybe could have made our top 32, although
her best performance. I think the reason why we said the same thing for him was because with Homecoming, he had Beale Street. I don't know. He's had enough movies. Oh, he was great in some. Never mind. He belonged down there.
Yeah.
But Amanda, we had a couple of other ones where because they're like Zazie, her best stuff I felt was mostly on TV.
Yeah, same.
I was going to counter for Deadpool, but yeah.
Some of the other people that were suggested to us, Ty Sheridan. I feel like maybe a few years ago, but he's been doing a lot of like weird movies and indies and offbeat comedies that I don't know if they're
good ones.
We got Elizabeth Debicki mentioned to us, and as much as I love her in Widows, yes, she is under 30. I just don't know if she's had necessarily the filmography to qualify for our top 32. What do you guys think about Samara Weaving?
Well, I think we had mentioned this or for something else when we were dealing with The Babysitter, because I was like, bro, they got a sequel to The Babysitter coming out as well. So she is popping.
Yeah. I failed to put her in the honorable mentions too.
Well, how many? I mean, look, like I wasn't also gonna add like Samara Weaving and Margot Robbie. Like, it'd be too many. Well, that's the other thing too. It's like people always forget that there's like, well, there's only 32 options. Like, why'd you forget this? It's like, well, then we take out the other one, and it's like, why'd you forget that one? And many times it comes down to
name names.
Why'd you forget the one I wanted? I mean, at the end of the day, it would have been worse to put him on and then kick him out. We would have still gotten the complaint out of the way. But no, Stephen James, we messed up.
I feel like he would have done well too because we really like him.
I really like him. Yeah.
Yeah.
Although I don't think he would have beat our boy Luce. Stephen James ain't writing and getting input on some stories like my man is. So.
Yeah. A few people also commented that Timmy Chalamet should have gone farther, and that's just not our fault that Timmy was up against Jennifer Lawrence in the second round. Like that's just
we gave a decent thing there. That's y'all completing the rest of his career when he ain't at the jet. Yeah, I think we made a decent enough point there. Did it hurt me? Yeah. Yes. I just tweeted a Timmy thing this morning, of course, but. Hey, it's by the rules that we had set. I think Jennifer Lawrence.
Yeah. The majority of comments that we got, I think, was people thinking that Saoirse should have won over Margot. Although there were a lot of people who did ultimately go Margot.
I love it.
I'm going to go back to the argument that I had then. I think was just she's proven it more at the box office. You know, like part of being a movie star is also being in big movies that appeal to a lot of people, and I don't know if Saoirse just has that track record yet, but Margot Robbie and Jennifer Lawrence are both 29, so if we revisit this list in a year, it might be very interesting to see what happens. We had Bailey from Loverboy Media on our best space movies bracket, which was a lot of fun. Thanks to everybody that watched that episode and checked us out afterwards. Thanks for subscribing. A bunch of people commented that Interstellar was their winner in spite of our selections. Fernando, you didn't get to appear on that episode, so what do you think?
I love the bracket you guys had. I thought there was a lot of interesting choices, a lot of obvious choices like Interstellar, Gravity. The Wall-E decision was very interesting, and just because when I think of space movies, it probably wouldn't be one that immediately jumps out, but the final two were Wall-E and Gravity, right?
It actually might have been Interstellar, but Gravity went against Wall-E in the semifinals.
So I consider the last four, top to top.
So Whew, that's tough. WALL-E is one of my favorite Pixar movies. I think I might have agreed with you guys, even though Gravity I prefer over Interstellar, like by a lot.
And yeah, see, that ended up becoming the real question was, were you choosing Interstellar or Gravity? Like, people realize, I don't give a damn what ends up at the end of it. I'm here for the discussion. And that was the craziest thing that came out to me was like, all right, so it really is Gravity, Interstellar for most people. I think I would go Gravity too.
Yeah, I
but
personally,
the score on Interstellar is insane.
Yeah, I personally hold like I guess a negative opinion on Interstellar, where I think it's a good movie. I just don't think it's one of Nolan's best. So,
okay,
I think it's
that's kind of the point that I made with Bailey is that like as much as I think Interstellar is a good movie, maybe I even underestimate on Interstellar because it might not even make my top 5 Nolan movies.
I wouldn't make
what I mean.
Yeah.
I also think looking back at a lot of these brackets we've been doing, the semifinals of each are so strong. I feel like you could almost just look at those.
Bro,
as
when we get
Rushmore.
to the 4, exactly, that's what I care about. So we every movie fan goes through this. Pick one, takes 3. Like
yeah.
We're in the age of streaming and convenience. I like the top 4, but hey, when it comes down to picking the one, I have no problem flinching and saying WALL-E easily. It's a surprising decision. But I think WALL-E definitely is going to hold up the test of time.
Yeah, for sure.
Easily.
Absolutely. Shout out to Jack Bolender, who watched our neon bracket and then watched Ingrid Goes West, commenting to let us know that he thought it was really good. The point of doing these brackets is giving us a chance to discuss some movies and shows that we don't ordinarily talk about. So when we can turn one of you onto one of those movies or shows... That's the best part.
That's the whole purpose, really, of it. Same thing with Cineclash. I have people going like, I know that answer. Got to go watch that movie so I don't get it wrong. I was like, well, it's not going to be the question on the same movie again, but I'm glad that it pushes you guys to watch more movies because that's literally, again, I always talk about how back in the Blockbuster days, I wanted to work at Blockbuster to be the person to recommend people things. Well, they closed down, so I had to find a bigger platform to do it for, more worldwide, I guess, than locally. So that's dope. That's awesome. That's sick.
Absolutely. So yeah, if Intercut has recommended a movie or a TV show to you that you have then checked out, please let us know in the comments. We'll feature some of the best of those on our Instagram and Twitter and Facebook, all those. So yeah, we really appreciate that.
And if you didn't like it,
let us know what you actually like.
Tell Fernando if you didn't like it. Go to his page.
Exactly. At Border Logic. So yeah, make sure to leave us a question in the YouTube comments. Email us, intercutpod@gmail.com. Reach out to us on social media at intercutpod. You will get it featured on the next show. You can also do whatever. You could also subscribe to us, do all the things. Make sure you're tuned in to Intercut. But we are getting to our final segment here. It's the new to see, where we give you our picks for the week, the things that you should be watching over the weekend. Art, what are you recommending the people watch?
I'm really looking forward to a little movie called Ruby Ruby Roo. Now, out of this box, because obviously now that I have a puppy, I don't even have all the other stuff, but it came with Scooby snacks. Shaggy lied. Those are not edible. But I am really excited for Scoob. They're doing this whole thing about like it being $25 if you pre-order, but it's subject to change. And we've been having this discussion on whether the $20 rentals are going to be the go-to depending on how long this lasts with theaters being closed. Some people even saying it might go up to $60, but right now, pre-ordered that bad boy for $25. I'm really looking forward to it, as well as re-watching the live-action ones because they starred Linda Cardellini. But
shout out Linda Cardellini.
Exactly. One of the other things that I am looking forward to is finishing the rest of Control Z. But I'm actually really looking forward to... Is Homecoming Season 2 coming out this week?
Next week.
Okay. Well, then I'm really excited for that one. That's what I'm really looking forward to. So I'd recommend Homecoming Season 1 in the meantime.
There we go. Fernando, how about you?
For me, I would say after hearing you guys talk about The Great, that's a show I wasn't really on my radar all that much. That seems like a show I'd be pretty interested in. I'll probably finish Control Z just to see, what it's about.
Where it goes.
Where it goes. And in terms of movies, I mean, Scoob, for sure. I'll probably check out. Trying to think if there's any other VOD. Maybe, Zach, you can key me in if there's a big VOD release coming out.
I mean, Capone was the big one.
Capone and Scoob.
Yeah. But yeah, The Great is a good option. That's one that I would definitely second. It's something that I wasn't particularly anticipating, and I sort of put on an episode and found myself really enjoying it. So hopefully you'll be in the same boat as me and enjoy that show. But it's not the only thing you should watch on Hulu. I'm 2 episodes into Mrs. America.
How is it?
Guys, Kate Blanchett's on TV.
Yeah.
It's not fair. It's not fair. Everybody else go home. She's so good. And the cast is just stacked on this show. Rose Byrne, Margot Martindale, Elizabeth Banks. It's
Character
endless.
actress?
John Slattery. The character actress herself shows up and is so good on this show. It's this really interesting look at sort of the reaction to the feminist movement, these anti-equal rights activists that were housewives predominantly, and how they were organized by Kate Blanchett's character Phyllis Schlafly. It's got this really interesting insight into the way that political dynamics can sort of be manipulated into getting people on your side. It feels very resonant for how we look at politics today. I mean, maybe there are a few moments that definitely feel like they're telegraphing the year 2020 to you, but I think it's so smartly written and really well acted that I'm just enjoying it for now. Like I said, I'm only 2 episodes in, and I'm still kind of just like, oh my God, there's another amazing actress. Like Melanie Linsky just showed up in episode 2, and I wasn't expecting her to show up, but I'm enjoying it so far. I'm going to stick with that. I'm going to stick with Run on HBO, and yeah, I'm doing a lot of different TV shows right now.
Speaking of HBO, I just looked up to see if there's anything I missed. Did you guys know that I Know This Much Is True already started?
Yeah. It had its first episode.
Yeah.
Haven't caught up with
So
it yet.
that might be a show I
knew.
might watch week to week, maybe.
Yeah, I'd watched the Intercut May must-watch video, and it pretty much let us... Yeah, I'm excited for that one, too.
Yeah. A couple of you asked if that's something that we're going to keep up also. And yeah, I think we're planning to do that again.
It's canceled. The producers have told us it's a one and go.
Yeah, we heard from On Up High, and no more Intercut.
No more Intercut. Layoffs start next week.
So I think that's about all for our picks for the week and this week's show. You can catch more from me, Zach Shevich, by following me on Twitter, Instagram, or Letterboxd at ZShevich. That's ZSHEV as in virtual reality, ICH. Or check out my YouTube channel, youtube.com/multiplex show. Fernando, where can people find more from you?
People could follow me on Twitter at border_logic. And you can also follow my Letterboxd, which is Fernando_films.
You can find me at the A to Z Show, and let me explain with my shifting hoodie beanie on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Letterboxd, and every week here on the Intercut podcast.
You can listen to every episode of the Intercut podcast on iTunes, SoundCloud, Spotify, or your favorite podcatcher. I like Overcast. And then make sure you subscribe not just to the audio podcast, but to the video one as well on youtube.com/intercutpod, where you can catch our bright, smiling faces as we break down the latest in entertainment. Find new episodes of Intercut every Friday. Please leave a comment, like the video, and consider heading over to iTunes to leave us a 5-star review. Shout out to AJI, who said...
Oh, they stopped by.
who said that we put in so much work and it truly shows. They talk about interesting and fun topics, which makes it super entertaining, never disappointed. Would recommend to anyone who's into movies or wants to listen to something interesting. Love you, AJI. If that's how you say your username, I have no idea. Like our Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter pages. All of them are at Intercut Pod to get updates throughout the week from Art, from Fernando, from me, from all the guests that we feature here on Intercut. Thanks again for tuning in, and until next time, Tom Hardy sounds like Kermit with coronavirus.